Today on The Real Story, Republican candidate for governor Bob Stefanowski is in the thick of campaigning, crisscrossing the state, making his pitch to voters. This morning, he's with us. Why Bob Stefanowski thinks this state needs some big changes, a state where a Republican hasn't held Connecticut's top job since 2011. And Bradley International Airport is gearing up for some major renovations, hundreds of millions of dollars aimed at improving and expanding the facilities. The executive director of the Connecticut Airport Authority, Kevin Dillon, joins us in studio this morning. He's going to give us details on the transformational projects, and he'll explain why they're anticipating air travel growth in the coming years to increase. It's all today on The Real Story. Good morning, and thanks for joining us on The Real Story. I'm Jenn Bernstein. The governor's race is heating up with 1 month to go until Election Day. We are in the final stretch, and that means campaigns are in overdrive right now. I'm sure you know this. It's hard to miss all of those political ads running in every single commercial break, right? Well, Republican candidate for governor Bob Stefanowski has been gearing up for this rematch. He battled now Governor Ned Lamont almost 4 years ago and did not win, but it was a competitive race. He only lost by around 40,000 votes out of the more than 1 million votes cast. Bob Stefanowski is joining us in studio to give us an update on his campaign and his platform this morning. Good morning to you and welcome.
Hello, Jen. Welcome back.
We haven't had an in-studio interview with you in like years, obviously because of COVID, but welcome back to The Real Story. Glad to have you on.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
All right, so how are you feeling about your campaign 1 month out from Election Day right now?
I'm feeling terrific. We did a bus tour this week. We hit 30 towns in 3 days, and the feedback is phenomenal. People aren't happy with where Connecticut stands right now. It's too expensive. People are worried about their safety, and parents feel like government has gotten between them and their child. That's not a good thing. Laura Devlin and I, my LG, we've got a plan to fix all three things, and we're looking forward to doing it.
I mean, you've been campaigning for a long time because we had the first race where you campaigned for that, and then even when Governor Lamont was first in office, you didn't remain silent. You continually toured the state, met with leaders, met with faith leaders, I remember down in New Haven.
Yeah.
So you've really built up a base in terms of trying to keep your name out there. How soon did you know that you wanted to run again?
I honestly didn't. People say, well, you knew you were going to run. We really didn't. And my wife, Amy, was as much a part of this as anyone else. But when we did the thing with the masks, and Governor Lamont wasn't able to find surgical masks, and we teamed up with the Jewish Federation of Greater New Haven, we delivered 1.5 million masks across the state of Connecticut when no one else could find them. That just gave us such a sense of gratification, but it also showed us what's going on in the cities. And Democrats have been in control of the cities in Connecticut for 40 years. It hasn't gotten any better. As we continued to think about it, we thought the platform of being governor, we could help people the most. I grew up in New Haven. I'm a product of the public schools. I've been very successful. More people should have the opportunity that I did, and we're going to provide it for people and get the cities on track.
The cities were the tough go during the last election, and they were the same for Tom Foley before you. Obviously, those are Democratic strongholds. How confident are you that you can win those?
I don't need to win. I lost by 40,000 votes last time. What I need to do is pick up more of the cities. And when I go to Bridgeport, I've probably been to Bridgeport 100 times in the last 4 years. What you hear is politicians come once every 4 years, they make a bunch of promises, and then they never see them again. We did a press event at Beisel's Drugstore on Dixville Avenue, where I was born in New Haven. And we had people coming up to us, thanking us that we were there talking to them, thanking us that we had a plan, recognizing that I know what it's like to struggle to make a rent payment or to make a car payment. Governor Lamont doesn't. He inherited $500 million. So they want somebody who understands what they're going through. They want somebody who has a plan to fix it. And most importantly, Jen, they want somebody who cares. And I really do care because I grew up in that environment.
Let's talk about the recent poll numbers. We've seen polls be wrong before. We were talking to a political science professor, though, and he was saying that he had seen 3 recently that were all kind of saying the same thing. How much do you pay attention to polls? Because it does show your race behind, and Governor Lamont up by like some 15 points.
I pay attention to our internal polls, which were spot on last time. This is within the margin of error. It's a low single-digit rate. And let me tell you how I know. Governor Lamont is spending $700,000 a week attacking me on TV. Now, I know he has unlimited money, but if you were up 15 points, would you really be spending $700,000 a week to compete with me? When I go out, it feels different than 2018. 2018, there was a level of frustration that was here. 2022, the level of frustration is here. People are doing things like filling their oil tanks halfway because they can't afford to fill the full tank and still afford groceries. We met a guy in New Haven. He's literally making a decision between feeding his family and buying prescription drugs. Governor Lamont can throw out whatever stats he wants about crime being down and it being affordable, but it's not. And people want to change. They want a different direction. They like the plans that we've rolled out, and that's why I know we're going to win this election.
You know, it is hard because you have an incumbent Democrat in our state. It can be an uphill battle for someone to go against that, right? Especially when there's been a crisis, for example, COVID. People don't always vote change in. What are you telling people out there? Are you trying to convince them that we need the change?
I'm quite candid with them. I say, if you think it's cheaper than it was 4 years ago to live in Connecticut, if you think it's safer than it was 4 years ago, if you think the infrastructure is better than it was 4 years ago, if you think as parents you've got more of an ability over what your kid is taught than you had 4 years ago, then vote for Governor Lamont. But I'm interviewing for the next 30 days to be the CEO of the state of Connecticut. You and the other people out there are going to be my boss. I work for you. I think we need a change. Most of the people out there think we need a change, and that's why I think we're going to win this.
I'm not sure if your internal polls are showing this, but according to the polls that we've been seeing, there's a gender gap.
Yeah.
There's a gender divide. I will say that the recent TV ad that you've put on with your family was a pretty brilliant ad, especially if you're seeing that gender gap. It shows, I mean, you have 3 daughters. You have your wife who you've been married to for a long time, and it was a humorous ad. What are you saying to women out there who might be on the fence?
Governor Lamont's lying. I mean, I hate to call a sitting
lying
governor
about what?
A liar. First of all, my position on abortion, it's codified into Connecticut state law, a woman's right to choose. I'm not going to change that law. I believe that a woman should have a right to choose. He's been lying about it, putting $700,000 against it every week. Of course that's going to have input on women. The thing I will say is I do think a parent should know whether their 13-year-old child is contemplating that. I believe in parental notification. Governor Lamont has not come out and said what, if any, limits he would have on abortion. He supported Dick Blumenthal's bill, which would have allowed abortion right up to the point of delivery. So my position is simple. Codified in Connecticut state law. It's allowed in the first trimester unless the health or risk of the baby is at risk. And that's where it's going to stay. I promise people that's where it's going to stay. That's what I'm going to deliver as governor. So take it off the table, Governor.
So you're saying you wouldn't make changes to the law as it stands?
I would not, other than parental notification, which I think we should have.
Will you push parental notification?
We'll see what the legislature comes up with, but most of the people you talk to in Connecticut support the fact that a parent should be involved in that decision. When you need I'm not even talking about consent. When you need parental notification to get a tattoo or your ears pierced and you don't have an abortion, I think that's a bit illogical. I think the governor's kind of extreme on that.
What age are you thinking parental notification would be necessary?
I would think up to 16 would probably be the right number, but we can talk about it. The point right now is there's no ability for a parent to have any insight to what their kid is struggling with. I think they should have it. But you know why Governor Lamont wants to talk about abortion? Because he doesn't want to talk about the economy. He doesn't want to talk about crime that's absolutely out of control. He doesn't want to talk about the curriculum that, in my opinion, should get back to reading, writing, and arithmetic. He knows he loses on all of those issues, so he's picked an issue that's already codified in a Connecticut state law, which is not an issue, and that's what he's trying to do to win the election.
Well, it's certainly an emotional issue, right?
Sure.
And with Roe v. Wade being overturned, especially in a state like Connecticut, it's something that people pay attention to, and it's something that you might see voters vote on that one issue for that because they are concerned. Would you defend a legal challenge to our abortion laws here in Connecticut if something came from out of state, like we're seeing with, you know, the gun law issue?
I will do everything I can to make sure that that law stays in effect as long as I'm governor, period. End of story. Governor Lamont talks about Connecticut values. He shouldn't be scaring the women of Connecticut about my position. We should talk about the real issues in Connecticut, which are affordability, crime, and parental rights.
You know, it's got to be challenging for you because you have the Connecticut Republican, and we've talked about this a lot on our show, can vary and be different from what the National Republican Party is saying. So a lot of Republicans in our state have to kind of really be clear about their views because voters are sitting here saying, you know, worried about what the national conversation is going on. What's that been like this time around for you? I know it's something you battled the first time around with President Trump, and it continues to be an issue. I was waiting for you to say, how long is it going to take you to bring up President Trump? But, you know, what's it been like that this time around? How's it been for you?
Well, first of all, I've been very clear on President Trump. You know, Joe Biden won the election. He's the rightfully elected president. If President Trump had anything to do with January 6th, he should be held accountable. But there's a reason I'm not running for Congress or Senator. I want to fix the state of Connecticut. So the issue with respect to abortion, done, codified in Connecticut state law. What am I focused on? The economy, safety, parental rights. That's what I can help. I can help that person who's working 3 jobs, but because the utility costs in Connecticut are the highest in the entire country, we can get those down. We have the 2nd highest taxes in the entire country. We have a plan to get those down. So I think the governor's being a bit disingenuous by not running on the issues that really people in Connecticut care about. That's why I don't really care what the polls say. I know what people are feeling, and what we're talking about is resonating.
Okay, let's talk about your economic plan, because you unveiled it. Was it a $2 billion plan?
Yes.
Including tax cuts?
It'd be about $2,000 per family. It's a mixture of tax cuts and regulating utility companies and getting rid of 200 taxes, which barely collect what they cost to collect. I think it's unconscionable, Jen, that we have a $6 billion surplus. That's not my money as governor. That's not Governor Lamont's money. That's your money. That's the taxpayers' money. And when people are struggling like they are right now, we should give some of it back. Who am I to say we collected $6 billion more than we need, but I'll decide when and where you get it back when you can't afford to go out to eat every week? It's unconscionable he's doing that. And we know why he's doing it, because in order to release it, he'd have to have a special session. He is worried that it's going to get out of control, that he can't control his caucus, and he's worried that it's not going to get elected. That's a pretty sad statement about a sitting governor, that they're putting politics ahead of people.
Under your plan, it doesn't necessarily, any kind of tax cuts, right, or where you're giving that money back, doesn't help us with our unfunded liabilities, and our pension debt is what's really kind of drowning our state. What's your plan for the massive amount of pension debt that we're drowning in?
The best way to earn out of that, it's $100 billion. Truth in Accounting came out today and rated us last in the entire country, $62,000 of debt per person. We can pay it down, and we should pay it down, but the way to get out of that is to stimulate the economy. And when you're the only economy like Connecticut is that hasn't recovered the jobs from the Great Recession, that's not a great start. We need to support small business. We need to pay off the unemployment insurance loan. We need to make it easier to do business. We need to invest in our trade schools. There's thousands of jobs that small businesses can't fill right now because we don't have the right skill sets. We need to revitalize our cities so that young people want to stay here. We need to give property tax relief. We've got a plan to cut property taxes so people can buy homes and start to live here like I did. So there's a ton we can do. We have a ton to work with in Connecticut. Great location, great people, great universities. But until you realize and admit you have a problem, Governor Lamont's unwilling to admit we have a problem. Of course we have a problem. And fortunately, we have the money that the federal government sent to us, which, by the way, is our taxpayer money. We have the money to deal with it. For the life of me, Jen, other than politics, I don't know why he's not dealing with it.
What's the number one thing you're going to do if you're elected? First thing you do?
We're going to cut 200 taxes day one. The state of Connecticut has over 300 taxes. There are things like the hypnotist registration fee and the interior design license fee. We're going to stop collecting them day one. That's immediately going to simplify it. It's going to take a lot of the nuisances away. We need to get rid of the tax that Governor Lamont put on food. Why in the world, when you've got 40-year high inflation, would you throw a tax on food? We need to extend the cuts on gases at least through 2023. We need to reverse the increase on the diesel tax. That's inflationary. You tax diesel trucks, they're just going to pass that cost on to consumers. That's inflationary. So there's a lot of things we can do, but in a current situation, when an incumbent refuses to realize that he has an issue, not much is going to get done. That's why we need a new team. That's why we need a different approach. You mentioned it earlier. We've had 12 years of Democratic governor, and we've had 40 years of a Democratic legislature. It's not working. So even if you're not in love with everything I say, why wouldn't we at least try something different? The status quo hasn't worked. I've got a rational plan to do it. It's achievable, and I think it's time to give somebody another shot, and I'm hoping the people of Connecticut, it's risky. I get it. You know the governor. You see him on TV. I know it's risky, but we are not in a good place right now. It's time to try something different. Just give me a chance.
Okay, what do you do from now until Election Day?
Out there every day.
You don't sleep, obviously. You knock on a lot of doors, but
day.
what's your plan? Are there certain parts of the state that you're going to try to hit more?
First bus tour was New Haven County and Hartford County. We need to get up to Litchfield. We're probably going to do another bus tour. Whether it's positive or negative, everything through the press gets spun one way or the other. The attack ads are clearly not accurate. The more I can get out with people. If I have 10 minutes with every voter between now and November, if I did, and Governor Lamont had 10 minutes with every voter between now and November 8th, I'd win by 10 points. I know it sounds arrogant, but I firmly believe it. I'm socially moderate and fiscally conservative. I am not the person that Governor Lamont paints in these attack ads. I will get that out there over the next 30 days. I've got an experience turning companies around. Connecticut is a big Trump company right now. We can turn it around. We just need the chance to do it.
All right, Bob Stefanowski, candidate for governor on the GOP side. Great to have you in studio. Thank you. And we will talk to you once again before Election Day again. We also have, oh yeah, absolutely. I think we have it booked. And we, of course, have reached out to Governor Lamont's campaign, and we are scheduling him to come on The Real Story as well, so you'll always hear both sides. Bob, thank you so much.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Jen.
it.
Thanks.
All right, coming up on The Real Story, trust in airlines and airports at an all-time low right now, but Bradley International is hoping to change that with lots of changes and improvements coming to the Windsor Locks Airport. We are sitting down to unpack it all, how your next flight could be better, and an inside look at the climb back to pre-pandemic travel levels. Stay with us.